All right, let's talk about how to have a successful painting company. And on the surface, it seems pretty simple. It's just make a plan and then do your best to execute the plan. Now, where I feel like a lot of people don't actually do that is they have the mentality of, I'm just gonna put in a good, honest day's work. I'm gonna work really hard and do everything I can, and as long as I do that, good things will happen, and I'll eventually reach my financial goal. But there's a lot of reasons why that isn't the best strategy in my opinion, but my point is, that's how most people think, including myself. And I just know from experience and seeing other painting companies that having a plan can make the world a difference. So nothing I'm saying is really that groundbreaking, right? It's like, hey, if you wanna get in shape, diet and exercise. Everybody knows that. But where it gets hard and where people are not really sure on what to do is just, what steps do I take? And that's what I'm gonna go over in this video is the exact steps you need to do to make a plan to hit your goals with business. Okay, step number 1 is you need to make a financial goal. The reason it's financial is it's quantifiable, it's measurable. You can say, hey, as soon as I pass that, then I've reached my goal. And it's just the best place to start. So the way you're gonna do that is you're going to use your history, right? If you've been in business for a year, take your last 12 months and what you made and go off of that and think to yourself, all right, what is something that I am confident that I can do? What do I actually believe I can do? Because I'm sure you've heard the expression, in order to achieve it, you gotta believe it. So pick a financial number that you definitely think is possible and obtainable, and then multiply that number by 1.2, which basically is gonna add 20%. Because it's good to make your goals just a little bit out of reach, push yourself a little bit. If you plan to do 20% more and some unexpected bad things happen, hopefully you won't get derailed too much and you'll still be able to hit what you were originally thinking. Now, if you've never ran a painting business and you're just getting started, you gotta pick a reasonable goal. Saying you're gonna make $10 million in the first year of painting, I'm sorry, but that's just not gonna happen. If you wanna know what I think is a reasonable goal, it kind of depends on what place you're in and stuff. I think a good starting place would be like $50,000 to $75,000. I think $75,000 is a good financial goal to shoot for your first year. Can you make more? Absolutely. Can you make less? Definitely. But I would make a plan building around that. All right, now you're gonna take that number, right? So let's just say it's 75,000, and you're gonna divide it by what your net profit margin is. If you don't know what your net profit margin is and don't know the difference between gross and net, I'll leave a link right here to a video I made about accounting. It should show you and teach you almost everything you need to know about accounting, at least for a painting business. And if you know what net profit is, but you don't know what your personal net profit is because you just don't have the right system in place, I sell an accounting spreadsheet that's gonna track that net profit for you. I'll put a link down in the description to where you can get it. If you've ever watched Shark Tank or anything, they're very strict on you gotta know your numbers. You gotta know your numbers. It's one of the key indicators to being successful is understanding your personal business. If you're just starting out and you're not really sure what net profit you should be using, it really depends on what your plan is. So if you're thinking that you're going to do all the painting yourself, I would shoot for 70% profit. But if you're gonna delegate out the labor and still do everything yourself, like the sales, you could shoot for like 30%. And you'll see here in a minute how this will change based on what your plan is, but you gotta pick some number just to get started. So take your financial goal and divide it by your net profit. And that is gonna give you a rough start of roughly about what kind of revenue you're gonna wanna do over the next 12 months to hit your financial goal. So that's step 1. All right, the next step is you're gonna make a 12-month financial projection. Basically, you're gonna show what you want your profit and loss statement to look like over the next 12 months. If you're unsure what a profit and loss statement is, again, you can check this video out here about accounting. It'll teach you all about that. And to make this projection, what you're gonna do is go down into the description of this video. There'll be a link to a Google spreadsheet that you can make a copy of, and it'll be a blank financial projection. It's completely free for you. All I ask in return is just like, comment, or subscribe to help grow the channel. So let's go ahead and hop into the computer and see what that looks like. It's gonna look like this, and you'll see that there's these different sections shown by these gray squares here. And when you fill this out, you're gonna wanna put numbers in these squares, not in these dark squares highlighted at the bottom that are outlined with the darker lines, like these squares here, here, you can see. And if you run out of room or need to add more, you can add more, or you can change what's there. And if you need more, you can hit this little drop down. You've got more squares there. These are just categorized income, cost of goods sold, overhead, sales and marketing, and then you can have a couple others if you want, like if you wanted to separate out vehicle expenses or something like that. I don't want to spend a lot of time explaining the P&L in this video. We'll assume that you know it and understand how it works. But back to my example of, okay, let's pretend 75,000 is our goal, and we're gonna say that our net profit from past experience has been 30%. So you take 75,000 divided by 0.3, and you realize that's 250,000. So for your income up here, it's going to be sales. I'm going to put 250,000. If you wanted to separate things out like interior, exterior, commercial, you could do that. This miscellaneous income is for things like a rebate you get from your supplier for buying a certain amount of paint. But the majority for a painting company of the income is just going to be from sales. So you're going to put that in there, and then you're going to slowly fill this out based on what you know. What I mean by that is you probably know from past jobs, like what does your labor and materials come out to? So let's go to one that's already filled out. And when you go through and you put all of your expected expenses for the next 12 months, you're going to notice one of two things. Your goal for the amount of money you want to make down here is going to be larger or less than what you started with. Remember, we started with 75,000, but now it's only saying 73,000. Now that can happen because maybe you got a new truck that you didn't have before, so that's an added expense that you weren't paying in the past, so that's why you're actually not making 30% now. Maybe you went out and got an office that you didn't have before, that sort of thing, so your overhead increased. Or the opposite can happen. Let's say that you didn't get that office and you realize like, wait, now I'm making more than 30%. That happens because things like your telephone expense, just because you sold more paint jobs doesn't mean you have to give the phone company any more money for your phone bill. So these costs are called fixed costs and they stay the same. Or maybe last year that was 2% because you only did half this amount of revenue. But since you doubled the revenue, it cut it down to 1% where you basically made an extra percent. So regardless of what happens, you're going to want to adjust it so that you're actually making your goal. So if you remember, the first example was we're only making 73,000. We need to do more revenue in order to hit our goal. So I'll bump this up to like 255. All right, now we're back to that 75,000. So now we've got our financial plan of how this would actually look, at least one example. All right, so the next step is we got to do some math. Don't worry, I'm going to walk you through it. It's pretty easy. But in order to do the next step, you're going to need three important numbers: your average job size, your lead conversion rate, and your sales rate. Your CRM should give those numbers to you at all times, and you should be able to see those any way you want, whether it's broken out by your every lead source, by your sales rep, on interior or exterior commercial jobs. If you don't have a CRM or your CRM is not doing that, I sell a CRM on my website, and you can analyze your numbers in all those ways. But long story short, you need those three numbers. If you don't know what they are, I'll link the video that explains those in detail and how to calculate them and what to use if you're new to painting. But this is the math you're going to need to do. I sell a spreadsheet on my website that does this math for you. You don't need it because you can easily do this math, but it can be helpful. And like I said in the other video I made, if you just want to like, comment, subscribe, and email me saying you'd like the spreadsheet for free, I'll email you back with the spreadsheet. All right, so let's just walk through and do this. I'm going to make some made up assumptions that doesn't mean anything, but we'll say our average job size is 4,000. Our sales rate is 35%. And our lead conversion rate is 50%. All right, so the step one right here is we're going to take the revenue and we're going to divide it by our average job size, and that's going to give us a number. That number is going to be the amount of jobs that we need. All right, so that's 63. You can't book 75% of a job, so we're just going to go ahead and put 64. All right, next thing is take the number of jobs you need and divide it by your sales rate. So we're going to say 64 divided by 35%, which is 0.35, 182.8, so round up to 183, and that's going to be the number of estimates you need. All right, and then we're going to take the number of estimates you need and divide it by your lead conversion rate. So we're going to take 183 divided by our lead conversion rate was 50%, is 366. And that's going to equal the number of leads that you need. All right, now the last step is you're going to take those numbers, the number of jobs you need, the number of estimates you need, the number of leads you need, and you're going to divide them by the amount of weeks that you can work. So there's 52 weeks in a year, but I like to use 50 because a lot of times you take a couple weeks off for like Christmas and Thanksgiving, that sort of thing. So 64 divided by 50 is 1.28. So we need to get 2 jobs a week. 183 divided by 50 is 3.66. We need 4 estimates a week. And 366 divided by 50, so we're going to say 8 leads a week. Now, if you really think about it, we rounded up, so you technically don't have to do 2 jobs every week. It's actually like 1.28, but some weeks you are going to have to do 2 jobs if you're going to hit your goal, so it's better to use these numbers when planning. So now you want to ask yourself, if I'm doing this all by myself, right? I'm just going to hire out the painting. Do I have enough time to generate 8 leads a week and make calls to those 8 leads a week and set up estimates? And then do I have time to go do those 4 estimates a week and do all the follow-up and booking and scheduling with that? And do I have time to actually produce 2 jobs a week with managing crews, getting colors, handling any issues, that sort of thing? When you look at your numbers, if the answer is yes, you could totally handle all that work, then you don't have a bottleneck on your time and you can do it completely yourself, and you can see that's great. You can make $75,000. Now, what you might notice is the bottleneck, the challenge, the part that you're wondering about is, how am I going to get 8 leads a week? I'm not getting 8 leads a week. So I'll put a link in the description on a video I made that explains how to market your business. But regardless, if you have a problem, you're going to have to solve it, which usually means you have to spend more money. So whether that means you're hiring people because you need someone to help you do the painting, the production management, or the sales, you're going to have to come back into your plan here and enter in those costs. Enter in whatever it's going to cost you to pay a sales guy to do estimates. Or like the example I was just giving, if you don't get that many leads, you're going to have to spend more money on marketing in order to get those leads, which is going to change all your numbers down here. And you're going to have to rework and manipulate this to get it back to your goal. And then you're going to have to manipulate these numbers to get your goal back to 75,000. And that could be raising prices, increasing revenues. There's different things that you can do to make it work, but you got to make a plan that financially works. I could go on for hours with examples on, what you can do in different situations, but I just want to give you the framework and concepts of how this works. So let me just really quickly give some hypothetical examples of how you would do this process. Let's say that you realize, based on the numbers you're looking at, that you will need to hire some labor. You're going to have somebody help you with sales in order to hit your goals, because you just won't have enough time to do it. So you'd come down to here under this sales, and you'd have to put in some money to pay that salesperson. A little later in this video, I'm going to show you exactly how to plan out their job and whatnot. But for now, let's just say that you were going to pay them 7% and have them do all the sales. I'm just going to say equals our revenue times 0.07 for 7%. And you can see now we've got about $18,500 designated to paying a sales rep. If we come down here, we're no longer making that 30% and we're only making $58,000. So we need to get back to our goal of that $75,000. So we're going to have to increase revenue. So let's just bump this up to 300. And now you can see we're a lot closer to our goal, and we're accounting for paying a sales rep. It went up to 21,000 because they're doing more revenue. All right, now you rework it again, right? And then you look and you realize, okay, based on how many leads I need, I only got half of that last year. I'm going to come up 100 short because last year I didn't get that many. You realize you're going to have to spend money on marketing. So you would come down here, maybe make a new one, marketing, or we can just put it under this pay-per lead one. And, let's just say that you estimate that you can generate leads at $150 a piece. Hopefully you can get them cheap, but you think that's a good plan. And you need another 100 leads. Well, 100 times $150 a piece is 15,000. So I'm going to put 15,000 here. And now again, I'm not hitting my goal, so I need to make adjustments for this. So let's bump this up to 350,000. It's like, okay, now I'm close to my goal again, but I need to come back and rework these numbers because I'm going to realize with this new goal, an extra 50,000, I'm going to need some more leads. Balance it out to where financially the plan makes sense. And these bird eye view numbers, these macro numbers, make sense. Like, they're possible. All right, after you've made a plan that financially makes sense and there's no resources that are going to get in the way, like time or the ability to get leads or the ability to produce things. Now, the next step is we're going to dive into our weekly projections, and we need to see how this looks week by week. Because if you remember, this is a bird's eye view. It's really zoomed out, but we need to zoom in now. All right, and you're going to want to plan this out for both production and sales. Now, I would definitely start with sales, and I think it's way more important to plan sales out to a T. Production is important as well, but in my opinion, you don't have to be as detailed and it's easier to adjust for production. So let's focus on the sales. This is the actual sheet that I use to plan week by week our sales projections. Now, you definitely don't have to be this detailed, and I'm confident you can make a spreadsheet to track it. It could be as simple as this, just put in 52 weeks, and then how much do you need to sell each week? Go through, make sure it adds up to your goal, right? If you don't want to take the time to make the spreadsheet, I sell this one on my website. So let me just walk you through how I do it and the reasoning behind it. So on this sheet, all the colored areas are places where you'd actually put information. So I start at the top. We want to know what is the goal for sales, which is going to come from the projection you just made. In this case, it's 350,000. So I would change this to be 350,000. Use whatever your average job size is, plug that in. It's the same numbers you're using to get these macro stats. So this right here, you're going to put what your closing rate is. I wouldn't put anything higher than you've done in the past. If you haven't done sales in the past, I would use 35. But if you sold a 44% booking rate, I wouldn't plan to do 56 next year. I would try to hit that, but when you're making a plan, just use the numbers that you've done in the past. That way you know and can be confident that you can deliver and hit on those numbers. All this column is right here. You don't have to use it, but I like to put in, if I've been using this multiple years, what the previous year's numbers were so I can compare year over year and see if we're improving. All the areas that are not colored will auto-populate. This column right here adds up to whatever this number says here. So you can see if I put 2 here, it's going to say 101. You want this to equal 100%. And this is basically saying how much of your goal do you want to do each week, what percentage. And the reason this is here is because everybody's situation is going to be different. And if it's anything like the situation that I'm in, we're very seasonal. Even though we do both interior and exterior, we definitely slow down around the holidays. So I can use that to adjust for this. Also, if you're just getting started, you could put 0 here and then give yourself some time to ramp up to get the marketing in place, to hire the door-to-door canvassers or whatever the case is, and then slowly ramp it up so that it's a realistic goal. And that's why you really want to plan week by week. You know, some weeks you're going to do 2 jobs, some weeks you're going to do 1 job. Well, which weeks and what does that actually look like is what we're trying to figure out here. So one of the things I like most about this spreadsheet is up here, it's going to show you your totals for leads and for estimates. So you can see on this blank one, it's showing current planned leads and current planned estimates, and it's based on what today's date is. So if I were to double click on this first one and change this to say, 2023, it's going to say 0 because it isn't this date yet. So you can put whatever date you want in here. If you're trying to plan out the next 12 months and it's May, you could go May to May. If I use the calendar year and I say 2022, currently right now, it's August 1st. So it's going to show me the amount of leads I need up till this point right here, which is 358. And then next week, it's going to add 12 onto that. So you can compare how many leads your plan said you need and how many leads you actually got. And same with estimates. And then your revenue total is going to be in this column here. And it's just going to show you week by week what your cumulative revenue should be. Let me show you one of my sales guys' real actual projection. Now, we're not this seasonal. We do Christmas lights in the winter, and this particular salesperson focuses solely on Christmas lights. So we actually plan to have 0 sales for some of the year for the Christmas lights. And you can see how we ramp up from 0 to where some weeks we're trying to do like 3.15% of our goal. And then we kind of ramp down as things slow down for us come October, November. Because we haven't done estimates in months, we don't have callbacks coming in. So his booking rate tends to start out a little bit lower. And then we ramped it up to 42% for our goal. Luckily, at the end of the year, he was closing 44%. But we used 42% because that was his previous year's high. We'll have weeks where we dropped it down low because he had planned vacations. So we weren't planning on booking a lot of work this week, but you still get callbacks and stuff that trickle in. But that's why you want to plan week by week. Look at everything that's happening. Because remember, I said you got to make a plan and you got to attempt to do the plan. That's the second part of this. So if you're a one-man show, once a week you want to review your numbers. If you're working with people, you should do a team meeting or at least a meeting once a week to review what's happening. So when we look at this one, you'll notice that we actually missed our goal for all these things up here. Basically, we're about 3% short on our conversion rate. We didn't get to our planned goal for leads as well as estimates. But if you look down here, we actually were able to hit our revenue goal. And there's 3 main reasons why we were able to do that. One was we planned for a $4,400 average job size, but his average job size was closer to $4,500. Another reason was we planned to book 42% of all the estimates we did. This column here is taking the booking rate for the entire year, not just week to week. So it's for the entire year. And you can see at the end of the year, we had booked 44%, which is 2% higher than what we planned. So bigger job size, booking more of a percentage than we planned, as well as there is a bit of rounding. It'll say that we want to do 12 estimates this week, but it might actually be 11.5, but you can't do a half estimate, so it's just going to bump it up to 12. So it's a combination of those 3 things as to why we were luckily able to hit our revenue goal, but missed on these other things. Now, as you're going week to week, this is where the real work is done. The daily grind, the weekly hustle is looking at every single week and figuring out if you're on track, and if you're not on track, how to get back on track. So you would look at, okay, did we get enough leads this week to hit our goals? And if you're not getting enough leads in your immediate future, that's going to be your main point of focus. And where you're going to put all your energy and effort into is, how do I get more leads? Figure out and solve that problem, because that's what's keeping you from reaching your goal. Or maybe you're getting plenty of leads, but you're not doing enough estimates. Then that's what you're going to focus on. So you could focus on getting your lead conversion up, or just getting more leads. Maybe you're doing plenty of estimates, but your booking rate isn't where it's supposed to be. So I would focus on sales, read a book about sales, do some introspective thinking, look at your CRM and figure out what objections are you getting. They're not saying yes, they're saying something else, and work on the one that stands out the most. Need to talk with my husband or wife could help you realize maybe I should work on my initial phone call and setting an estimate where they both can be there. It's other estimates. Maybe you work on separating yourself from other contractors, building value when you're doing your estimate. The point is, you're going to know week to week what you need to specifically focus on to help you get from A to B. At best case scenario, you're ahead of your goal and it's cool, how much of a cushion can you build? What's possible? Or worst case scenario is you're way behind your goal and you're worried that you're never going to be able to catch up, but at least you're going to have a good idea of where you're going to end up at the end of the year if things continue to go the way they've been going, and what can I do about it to get off of that trajectory and get to where I want to be. All right, now you're going to want to do the same thing for the production side. And I will dedicate and make an entire video going over specifically production. But you're going to be in one of 2 camps when it comes to production. Camp 1 is that you've been running a painting business and have been producing houses. Camp 2 is that you're new to painting and just starting your painting business. Now, if you've been producing houses, you can use that past data to kind of get an idea of how many crews, employees, guys are you going to need in order to produce your revenue goal. And if you're in the first camp where you're new to painting, I want to cover a couple things. At the beginning I said I don't think as production is as important to plan out detailed like sales. And the biggest reason for that is you can make an outrageously amazing production plan and take 3 days on it. But it's really nothing but a waste of time if you can't first prove that you can actually get the sales and do the sales. So that's why I say it's more important to make the sales plan first and then try to execute that. And then just to keep it really simple and show you that production, at least the planning aspect, can be relatively simple, is one good crew should be able to do at least 1 job a week. So just take your average job size and multiply it by however many weeks you're planning out. If it's a year, do 50. And just if your average job size is $5,000, you got 50 weeks, you can do $250,000 with 1 crew. And then you just know, hey, if my goal is more than that, like 400, I'm gonna need 2 crews. And once I get to 500, that's maxed out 2 crews. So it can be, at least the planning aspect, relatively simple. The last piece of advice I'll give to anybody that's just starting their painting business, you can use employees or you can use subcontractors. And I was the guy at the beginning, when I first started my painting business, I said, I'm gonna use employees because it's better for quality. I can say I do it in-house, it'll help me with sales, yada, yada. I had every reason in the book to think that it was gonna be better with employees. And what I found was a lot of the large painting companies around me and people that I knew were using subcontractors. So I started using subcontractors too. And at the beginning, the first few years I'm running 6 crews of all employees. Time goes on, we still use employees in my company, but we use way more subcontractors than we do employee crews. I could make a whole video dedicated to this, and I probably will in the future. But the point I'm trying to make is, if you're first starting out, the advice I would give, knowing what I know now, is to use a subcontracting crew. You just need to find one good subcontracting crew and manage them well to hit a lot of, your first year goals. And I would definitely subcontract first and possibly maybe later use employees. But the reality is subcontractors are cheaper, less liability, and less work. It's a lot less time, a lot less energy, which will allow you to focus on more important things of growing your business, working on top of your business, and getting, the engine rolling. There's a reason why a lot of the really large residential painting companies are using subcontractors. But that's all I'll say about that. You can definitely use employees too. I have a spreadsheet that plans out, how many actual employees you're gonna need week to week and whatnot. But that's the great thing about being a business owner is you get to decide what you wanna do. All I'm trying to do is just provide advice and give back to the community. I feel really grateful that I've been able to make a living from painting, and I'm just trying to help others that wanna go down that same path and tell you about the lessons and mistakes that I made, so hopefully you can learn and get from A to B a lot quicker than I did. All right, drop your questions down in the comments. Subscribe if you want to see more content like this. And if you want to let me know you like the video, hit the thumbs up button. Appreciate you watching. See you in the next one.